Hey Digital Hustler, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you step by step how to set up your sales conversion campaigns and ads in Ads Manager. So the first thing you want to do is navigate to your Ads Manager and then go into your ad account that you set up. In this example, I'm just using a Sandbox account, but whichever account you previously set up, navigate there. Then once we're in this dashboard and you see this view, you want to hit create. Then because we want to drive sales right to our website, we're going to select the sales campaign objective since our goal is to drive conversions. Next, you're going to see this new option, but for our purposes, we want to do a manual sales campaign. Advantage Plus shopping campaigns can be beneficial when you already have a lot of interest campaigns running and you have a significantly large budget. But for now, we are going to do the manual setup. Next, you want to name your campaign. I like to be as specific as possible. So if I know that this is a sales campaign and my objective is going to be purchases, I like to put that in the name. Also, you can put the date if you have multiple offers that you're thinking of launching, just to keep everything organized. And the date, you can add the date here, and there we go. So next, any special categories. So typically that is if you are a business, right, that is in employment, housing, social issues, like any political campaigns. For most of you, this is not going to apply, so we can skip it. But you can always look at these categories and assess, right, if you're a credit company, whether you need to select that or not. Next, we're going to keep the campaign details as default. Our campaign objective is sales, which is great. We're not using a catalog, which is a way of syncing your Shopify store. I always recommend starting with setting up your campaigns manual so you have control of everything and you know exactly what products you're promoting. Next, we are going to leave this as default. Again, you can leave the Advantage campaign budget off for now. What the campaign budget is, just to give you a little explanation though, is if you had 3 different ad sets, for example, or audiences, and you wanted to choose, or you wanted to let Facebook choose which one it's going to allocate more budget to, you could select Advantage Campaign Plus. Will distribute your budget across delivering ad sets exactly. Now, sometimes I prefer to control things at the ad set level because I want what I'm testing, both audiences, to get a fair shot. And so putting an equal budget on both will allow you to do that. And essentially you're running an A/B test. And then next, we're gonna, again, you can leave that as default. So in terms of your audience or your ad set, this is where you set up all of your audience details. Again, I would just name it something specific. For this example, I'm using one of the free workshops that I promoted on Meta. So, and my target audience was entrepreneurs, and you can also be more specific and do male and female, you know, ages 30 to 50 if that's what your audience is. And then, you know, top US cities, like the geographic area as well. Next, we're gonna hit website. In terms of conversion location, we wanna drive sales and conversions to our website. Performance goal, we'll leave that as is. We wanna maximize the number of conversions, of course. The pixel is here. It kind of connects automatically once you have that set up with your ad account. And then the purchase or conversion event will be purchased. Now, you may see this pop up for you as well. In my case, I haven't done an offer, so the pixel is inactive. And you may also get this if you just implemented your pixel. So if you do, don't worry about it. It's totally normal because there's not a lot of activity yet on your pixel, so it might take a little bit. As long as you know you set up your purchase events and your pixel tracking, you're good to go. You can ignore it for now. Next, we'll leave this blank. The cost per result goal, that is helpful sometimes if you want to cap how much you're spending, right, for a certain offer, how much you're spending per customer, per new customer. Now, I don't recommend doing this at first when you're launching your campaign because you really don't know what your actual cost per result, and sometimes it can also be very limiting for Meta. It kind of gets confused. It doesn't know, or it does a less better job of showing your ads to the right people who are going to make purchases. So we just want to leave that blank and allow Facebook to do its thing. Next, we'll do $10 if we're going with the example of we want 2 ads or even 1 ad or 2 audiences if we're doing any kind of A/B testing. So we'll do $10, and then you can set your start and end dates here if you want to make sure that you're not overspending, right? That's a way to do that. But for now, I'm going to leave it open. Budget scheduling, we're not going to worry about that. Some of these, options are more advanced and not necessary when you're initially setting your campaign up and you really don't have any data or enough data to really make those kinds of decisions. And they don't make a huge difference in performance anyways. Next, audience controls. We are going to click show more options, minimum age. We can do 21 plus, and you can update this as you wish. And then you can also update your locations here. Now, you don't have to update your locations there if you want to just use Advantage plus audience. I'm sorry. If you want to put that in when we do the audiences, you can certainly do that then. So with the new, the dashboard changes all the time. So if you notice slight differences, but the language is the same, that's all good. They make updates to this dashboard ads manager like every other week. But we're going to hit switch to original audience options. And then we're going to do use original. Now, it's always going to prompt you to use their default settings because typically that's how Meta makes more money. In our cases, we're trying to make more money, and we want to be able to control who we're showing our ad to, right? We know our customers or potential customers best. Now, if you've already created your audience, you could say use saved audience. So I have mine created here, or you can also create your audience right here while you're setting up your campaign and then save it. So we're not doing a custom audience. A custom audience can be, for example, people that are going to your website, right? We talked about this in the ad strategy overview, or people who are visiting your Instagram pages, things like that. In this case, our goal is really to reach new people, new customers. So we could change the location, for example, to New York, Miami. And you'll also see that the audience definition and the size starts to load up on the side. So that can also give you an idea of how large your audience is. Now, the larger your audience, right, the more money you want, but you also don't want it to be too narrow because that will increase your costs. So I like to stay around like the 2 million mark, that seems to be a sweet spot. Obviously, you know, that's subject to your performance results, but you can start comfortably around 1 or 2 million. It sounds like a lot, but it's not for the AI. Next, I want to make sure, let's say, you know, 25, I want my customers to be 25 to 50. So I could change that there. And then this is the most important, right? The demographic, the interest audience. So if I'm targeting entrepreneurs, maybe I can target people who are into entrepreneurship. Now, you need to make sure to select the interests, right? So there's employers, job titles, excuse me, and different options. But for our purposes, we want to make sure that it's interest audiences. And then all you have to do is just click on it, and then it automatically adds it. And what's also very cool, it seems like it's a little glitchy, of course, but let's say people who are entrepreneurship, first class flights, right? First class travel, there we go. What else? Money, or they're into finances. So you want to stack different interests together. Stacking just basically means we're adding multiple similar interests together. And I can see right now my audience is at 3.7 to 4.3 million. So that's big enough. I could even decide to say, you know what, I only want to do Miami. And then maybe you can play around with that. And then let's do New York. Let's do Manhattan to kind of narrow it down a little bit. There we go. So that looks good. Now, if I wanted to go ahead and save my audience, right, I could do this here. So save audience, sandbox 2 audience, and then you just name it. I like to name it as specific as possible. So entrepreneurship interests, and then I put the age range, men and women, 25 to 50, and then I put the city. So you get the idea. Now, if you already have an audience, right, like I said, you can select it this way, and then all of your previous, how you set it up will show up right here. So you can see here, I had a saved audience. Same thing, 2 different ways to do the same thing. Now for placements, I like to leave things as is for now, and I'm just gonna show you, and sorry, I click edit right here, right, and then I do manual placements. And you can see right now my ads are going to run on all these platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, the Audience Network, and Messenger. When I'm starting a campaign, I recommend, and I recommend to you as well, to just leave as default. Now, if you notice that a lot of your money is going to the Audience Network, you can decide later on to take it off. And just focus on Facebook and Instagram, take off Messenger. But to start, you can leave it as default and update these later based on your data. So I'm gonna go back to the recommended placement setting. So I'll just leave that there. And then the brand safety stuff, all of that is good. You can leave as default. Typically, this is where you could select different options if you don't want your content, of course, right, to be next to maybe competitive brands or different, yeah, exactly. All right, so then we're gonna hit next. And this is where we set up our ad. So at this point, you should have your ad created. You should have your ad copy. I typically have it handy on another tab, right? So all I have to do is kind of plug and play at this point. Again, I want to be descriptive with my ad. So I might do free workshop, version 1. If I'm using different ad copy, making sure that I'm noting it. I use just acronyms for everything, and you can create your own template with the names or with the naming convention that you like to use. And then I also like to put in the CTA button that I use. So this is helpful because once you have multiple ads, you can start to see patterns of, okay, what was my best ad copy, which ad worked better, of course, what CTA buttons resonated more with my audience. So we want to have all that easily readable. So when you make your naming convention, and I know I'm like keep repeating it, but when you make it very like easy to read and descriptive, you're able to read your analytics a lot better and easier and make those findings and insights that will help you optimize your campaigns and ultimately make more money. All right, so next we want to upload our ad. This one this is really up to you. That is if you want to be next to other advertisers, and sometimes you'll see it on Instagram, right, in the Reel section, or even on Facebook where you just scroll and you see multiple, for example, like furniture stores if you're looking for a couch or something like that. I don't mind, so I keep it on, but that's your personal preference. Then we want to navigate right where we have our ad copy. And like I said, I have this handy, so all I have to do is kind of copy and paste. So here we want to add our landing page under website URL. So where are you driving your ad to? Next, we want to upload our ad. So in this case, I'm going to be using this one. And then if you don't have let me back up. I would recommend that you create a 9:16 version of your ad, which is really easy to do. If you're using Canva, you just resize it and move stuff around. This way, when it appears on Instagram or Facebook story, it just looks more professional and gets more engagement. And then for the right column, that never really gets any impressions anyway, so you can leave that as is. Next, there's different optimizations. Sometimes they're automatically added, sometimes they're not. I like to look at each one and assess, right, which one is actually going to be beneficial. So expand image, I don't see that being necessary. The ones that I like to use typically, no. There are more. If you click on see more enhancements, there we go. Okay, the one that's can be helpful is the image template. So I would say try this one. This usually makes your headline just a little bit more bold, and I'm sure that you've noticed that on some of the ads that you've seen. So this will allow Facebook to decide whether, it'll be beneficial to use that for the user or customer that it's showing your ad to or not. I like to add music for stories and then text improvements as well. Now, if I want my text to really stay exactly the same because I have a specific offer, specific price points, and also for branding purposes, I may not do that because I want it to be exactly as is, right? If I'm more flexible in terms of, especially depending on the ad type, right? If you're creating a carousel, then maybe I'll let Facebook have more flexibility. In this case, actually, I want it to just appear as is, exactly as I have wrote it. So I'm going to turn it off. Next is where we put our primary text. So that is the main text that is going to go on the ad. So again, I have my little sheet handy. So all I have to do is copy and paste. There we go. Make sure the spacing looks good, and you can see the full view of how your ad look if someone was to click on see more by clicking here in the ad preview, which is super helpful. Next we are going to, well, let me review this. So these are different text variations, right? So if you, again, there's so many AI tools now. If you wanted to, for example, launch A/B test and do a different variation, so you're using the same ad creative, but you want to test a different ad copy and you need help, this is also another tool that could help you write additional ad copy. For now, I had already written mine, so I'm not going to need it. Then we want to copy and paste our headline, which I have here. Something important to know about the headline is that you want to make it very enticing, right, for your potential customer. So whether that's like the offer price, like, you know, get 40% off now, boost your business sales today, last chance for, you know, 20% off, last chance for, you know, I can't think of anything right now. Or you could do don't miss out on this offer, buy these tickets now. The goal is you want it to be action driven when it comes to the headline, because this will for sure get shown. My bad. The primary text will for sure get shown. This usually does, as long as it's not too long, right? So, and it also, excuse me, they say it's optional, but it really is not optional in my eyes. So I don't know why they say it's optional, because if you don't have it, right, it just kind of, all you'll see down here is the URL. So you want to make sure to include the headline, make sure it's actionable, another call to action, something to drive someone and entice them to click on your ad even more than your ad copy did. And some people just skim the ad copy too, right? So it's, even if it's slightly repetitive, that's totally fine. And then the description is, again, another opportunity if you wanted to add additional details about your offer here. Now, this is the one, it's the description is additional text that appears in some placements. Again, sometimes it'll appear, sometimes it won't, but it definitely does not hurt to have it. I want to make sure that only my headline is there. If I want to make sure that only my headline shows, then I would just leave it blank. But the more characters that you're able to put in your ad, the better. So we're gonna, and by that I mean like the more features that you're able to use, right, to enhance the ad, the better the experience for that consumer. So description is just that. It's something that's very descriptive. So learn how to run ads like a pro. So we're going to do that. And then call to action. There's a bunch of different ones. Some that, you know, are tried and true are definitely learn more. Get offer works really well. For purchases, you could do shop now also. Those tend to work really well. So I would just kind of stick with those to start, and then you can always test other ones later on. All right, so we're not going to do any info labels. And then manually add code. So here you can, this new feature, you're able to highlight promo codes if you have any. So if you had a promo code, right, that your customer can use, you can manually add it here. And then it will show up on the ad. It doesn't show it on the ad preview, but it just highlights the code to make it easier, right? Again, for the consumer to be like, oh my God, here's the sale, here's the code, let me get it. In this example, we're doing a sales conversion ad. This workshop was free. I'm just using the graphic as a placeholder example. Of course, your ad creative, right, will be about your offer or service or product that you're selling. Next we have Advantage Creative. Again, these are just more AI tools that can be helpful, but I always tell my clients that before we give the AI ability to kind of decide things on its own, we want to actually test our creative and have a little bit more control over what our ads look like, where we're running our ads, who we're showing our ads to, especially with a limited budget, because we don't want to just spray and hope it works. We want to be very targeted and specific. So we are going to leave that for now. Again, this is the website URL. You can always also change it if you want the display link that shows up in your ad to look different. For example, if I wanted to remove like HTTPS and do just this, especially if you have like really long or maybe an ugly URL, you can do that there. There's also cool new add-ons that Facebook has, like if you are a service business and we can book your service on your website and pay for it, right? Maybe you also want to have the option if someone wants to call. So that again is would show up like this, and they show the preview here. So people visit your ad and land on your website, that little like phone number bar would show up. Now, if you don't have a phone number, technically, right, you're an online store, obviously don't do that. I don't want anybody calling me, so I, click none. But if you do have an office line, then that is also a great way to add that feature and just more ways for potential customers to reach you. Next, tracking, right? We want to make sure that our pixel is green. That means that it's working properly. And last but not least, I always recommend adding these UTM parameters. Typically, if you have Google Analytics set up, this will enable you to also see your data in a third-party source, which is always beneficial to do cross-referencing, and you're also able to see what people do on your website, right? Once they land on your website from the ad, what other actions are they taking on your website, and you can get additional information on your customers. So I love Google Analytics. Campaign source, this you can put Facebook, Instagram ads or meta ads. For Medium, I like to do placement, so that is where your ad is going to be shown. So it'll appear like this, like Facebook feed. Campaign name, I just let it be static, so the campaign name. And then the content is the ad. So just add these parameters. As you type them in, they'll automatically appear, and then you just hit apply. And then once you do that, you can always copy and paste this, or just again save those values on a sheet somewhere and then easily type them in. This way you are just adding to your data pool, right? In Google Analytics, and over time you can make better business decisions. And it's always good to have a third party source of data. So the last thing that we're gonna do for this ad, now if we were only launching one audience with one ad, we could hit publish. And even not, we can hit publish now. It's always going to prompt you this nonsense, and we've already talked about it. We don't want Advantage Plus audiences, which is basically letting Facebook decide who is going to show your ad to, because we are trying to be very targeted. So we're going to do publish without adjustments. Once you hit publish, this is going to say processed once it's actually publishing. So your ads are going to go into a review process. I didn't actually go through with the publish because I'm not actually trying to run these ads. Then what you can do, right, if you're running a different, a different audience, you can always go and, well, it'll probably take you here. Actually, once you publish, it'll show up here. And then you can create another audience. So for this, I could create, let's say I want to market to moms, right? Just as an example. And we're going to hit continue. And then it's going to bring us back here. So we would do the same process that we just went through with setting up the audience, setting up the placements, or leaving that as is. What else? The audience here is the most important part, and the budget. This is where you set up your budget. So I wanted to do, for example, $10 and $10. This is where I would do it. Then I want to update my audiences, right? I don't want to use the broad. This is also called, you might have heard, a broad audience. So you're going to hit switch to original, use original audience, and then you can go ahead and set up your other audience here. Oops, I'm in the wrong place. This is custom audiences. I want to target moms. So I could look for motherhood, right? People who are interested in motherhood interest. There we go. We could do family, and whatever your client or your potential customer avatar is, right, and their traits, this is where you want to insert it. So I would finish that, and then the placements, again, I always like to just look at it for my own sanity, but I leave it as is. And then this is where you could select if you really didn't want to run a Messenger or Audience Network. Next, you would upload your ad. Again, just make sure that you name it very specific. And then we go through the same process. We're going to add our media. So there's two options, add image and then add video. So if you're doing a video, you would upload it here. Again, add your primary text, your headline, your description, your call to action. All right. Why is it doing that? Oh, I probably have something. Okay. So you want to make sure in the ad that you have the website, right, selected. So that's why I was doing that. But anywho, you go through the exact same process. I'm not going to redo it again. And then you hit publish. So we have here, right, our ad campaign. Then we have our audiences. In this example, we would be testing 2 different audiences. We would also be using the same ad potentially. So we can, a little trick that I want to show you also is you can also duplicate ads. So let's say I want to, oh, my mouse is going crazy. If you want to do a duplicate, you would click that existing campaign, this, and then I want it to be in the moms, and then you hit duplicate, and there you go, you have your duplicated ad. And this is literally saved my life. This is like the best feature. You can just remove copy from the name. If it's the exact same ad, you're just running a test with 2 different audiences, right? And then if you were, for example, running a slightly different variation, so you wanted to test the 2 audiences as well as 2 different ad copies, you could do quick duplicate. So if you duplicate it within the same ad set, you just hit quick duplicate. If you duplicate it within 2 different, if you want to duplicate it in another ad set, then it's duplicate. So then I would do quick duplicate, and then it'll show up on top. And then I would just do add copy 2. I just like to update. I like everything to look super clean. And then I would go to my handy dandy sheet, and I already have add copy 2, right? So then all I have to do is copy and paste this, and I don't have to like reset up the ad from scratch. So that's why I love this feature. It just saves a lot of time when you're always running new ads and campaigns like I am. Okay, so there we go. And then I like to run through everything and make sure that everything looks good. This looks good. Website URL. I have my display link. I'm not using any browser add-ons. Languages are, that option is off. We don't want to give, I have to reemphasize, Meta too much control, because it might run amok, and we want to be in control of our ads. And then also the URL parameter is already set up for you because we duplicated it. And then again, you hit publish. And then once you hit publish, I'm just going to close out for now. You're going to see this, it's going to say processing, or in review, but I think it's processing now. And then once your ads are actually live, you'll see that they're delivering. And that is how you set up your sales conversion campaign. I hope that was super helpful. And again, a few things to remember: making sure that you are using the sales objective, making sure that you have your purchase conversion event tracking working and implemented on your website. First, implement the pixel, then the tracking, either manually or through your backend if there's an automatic integration. Then making sure that you select that, right? So Facebook optimizes around purchases. Having your landing page, your product page is very important. Your ads, your ad copy, your headline, your descriptions, your audience, making sure that you know, okay, and this is part of the work that you do previously, in making sure that you have your ad strategy and you know who your potential customers are, and then setting up your ads. And then I know you get very excited, but I would leave at least 3 days to let it do its thing before you start messing around with it. You want to give the algorithm time to kind of get a sense of, okay, who are these people? Who should I show this ad to best within this targeted audience? And then you can go to the next video and see how to actually read and analyze your data for better results. All right, see you in the next video.